Hello and welcome to the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Nina Adio, a social media marketing expert specific to the wedding industry. On this show, I discuss tips to help you DIY your social media, as well as getting the confidence and income to outsource it. Thank you for allowing this episode to come through on your Bluetooth, your car radio, wherever it may be you're listening from today. Now, let's take your wedding business to the next level. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the I Do Wedding Marketing Podcast, especially if you're listening to this as it comes out. This is coming out right after Memorial Day weekend, which in the wedding industry can be a very long back to back busy weekend. But maybe not if you are somebody who is tapping into the luxury market. Maybe instead of having to do or wanting to do 4 weddings throughout the entire Memorial Day weekend, you're looking to scale back and maybe do one, and maybe a couple of weddings per year, even. And today I am going to be sharing an interview with Renée Sabo, who has so many credits that I'm about to tell you all about in this market. So you may know Renée as the lead wedding planner and owner of Urban Soiree, her wedding planning business. She also is the host of the Confetti Hour podcast. And most recently, she is launching a mentorship program helping others to grow in the wedding industry. So she and I will talk about that and how you can work with Renée. But in this episode or interview rather, what we really wanted to talk about was marketing for luxury clients. And she specifically uses a term called emotional marketing. And this has been following me ever since I spoke with her. We sat down together earlier this month, and I've been thinking about this and the emotional side of marketing a lot as I've been sitting down to create content calendars and to grasp the attention of potential new customers. So I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this and to see what you take away from it. Be sure to tag me on Instagram at I Do Wedding Marketing to let me know what your takeaways are, or you can join the I Do Wedding Marketing Facebook group. And of course, I welcome you to review the podcast if you end up enjoying this interview, which I am almost positive you're going to. All of the websites we mentioned for Renée is going to be linked in the show notes below. So let's take it away and chat about emotional marketing for luxury clients with Renée Sabo. Renée, straight from Italy, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Nina. It's so great to be on, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, are you able to tell our audience a little bit about your trip?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you for asking. So I just got back from Sicily, and I went to the Engage conference in Taormina. It was everything it sounds. It was wonderful, amazing. But I think the most exciting part was just a lot of like really great new connections were made, and so you're already like enjoying the atmosphere and exploring. But it was truly special. It was a really great week with people. So yeah, but and then the week before I went to Italy with my family on the Amalfi Coast, and that was also very relaxing and wonderful. So I'm feeling very spoiled before I enter wedding season.
Yes, absolutely, but I bet it has you really inspired with so much that you
Yes.
learned and wanna share. Can you tell us, I know we have a really good topic to get into, but
Yeah,
can you
no, I
tell
but
us
I
a little
love
bit about the conference, the
yeah.
Engaged, conference and what that is for those listening?
Oh, yeah. So for those who haven't heard about Engage Summits, it's primarily, a luxury wedding conference, and they offer a few different types of offerings for conferences. So you can do their larger summits, which is can be anywhere, around like 200, 300 people. And then they do more focused retreat style or like immersive smaller groups. So this trip in Sicily was a bit smaller, 130 people. They offer, peer led discussions and a lot of incredible speakers. And, overall, the immersive experience that you get and just feeling really inspired and the events that they host, it's all just wrapped up into one amazing week and you leave feeling just ready to conquer the world, I would say. And it's definitely for people who want to up level in the business and serve kind of this ultra luxury clientele. And I've been going now only this is my 2nd year, and I've been really grateful for the investment. It is an investment, and I always people always say that, but once you're ready for it, you kind of feel like there's nothing else, I would say, that tops that experience. So I'm really grateful to be able to fit it into my budget this year and go before the season starts.
That is fantastic, and it really aligns with what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
We're getting into not only emotional marketing, but specifically for luxury clients. And
Mhm.
I love taking my audience on the journey for those who maybe aren't there yet. What you're
Yeah.
speaking about will really help them visualize what this is going to look like for them and what their life could look like if they go on this trajectory towards
Yeah.
the real luxury client. But as I was reading and doing my research about all that you have done, you really have such an extensive background in the wedding industry.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, from
I'm
Urban
blushing.
Way, your wedding planning to the confetti hour, which is your teaching, to everything in between.
Mhm.
So let's pretend you are a Marvel superhero. What
No,
is
no, no. You're so sweet. They should make a Marvel movie for wedding professionals. I
yeah,
feel
because
that would be
really,
incredible, yeah.
wedding planner. Yeah. So
Because I do think we're all superheroes,
yeah,
so
what
yeah.
is your wedding pro origin story?
Oh, I love this. Well, I feel I have a little unique background in the sense that I got started at a pretty young age in terms of falling in love with this industry. So when I was 15, my mom got remarried and I was in high school and excuse me, she hired a wedding planner and I was just very drawn to all the details. It was, a really large wedding. They had over 350 people at a beautiful hotel in Cincinnati, Ohio. And there was just so many logistics that went into it. And so I was really drawn to all the details and just the way it all flowed. But more importantly, I was really impressed by the wedding planner that my parents hired. And so I told my parents, this is what I want to do. And they said that's not a real job because at the time it was a harder business to get into. The industry is so different now than it was, 20 years ago. And so I ended up going into college for like PR, marketing, strategic communications, hence why I love the topic we're going to talk about today with emotional marketing. But the reason I did that is because it was really the only way to get into events. So you had to kind of start doing smaller, PR events and kind of getting into the world that way. And then on the side, I would take little workshops with wedding planners, or I would kind of try to network with other event industry, associations that were happening at the time. So, yeah. So fast forward, I, got my first jobs. I've worked in event rentals, hotels, different properties here in Boston once I moved to Boston and for 2 other luxury wedding planners. And then I finally started my own company. So, in fact, have proved to my parents it is a real job and I work more than most of my siblings. So it's kind of funny now. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been a journey for sure. And I wouldn't trade it for anything though. So
That's
yeah.
a great, great story and a lot of valuable
Yeah.
information there alone. Because I know we do have
Yeah.
some listeners who are they're still in the fantasy phase or they're still in
Interesting. Yeah.
the side hustle phase of it. And even just learning how, you kind of compromise with your parents in doing PR and that
Mhm.
still is a really relevant degree and background because I'm sure
Yeah.
you use it constantly and used it for
Constantly.
networking, for
Yeah.
Fetty Hour now, and for what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I will get into that aspect a little bit later on in the topic too, but I do think a lot of what we do in the wedding industry is PR. PR for our couples, PR for what they want. And so I do find that very interesting. But I will say that my parents didn't stop there. They actually made me also get my master's in business. So I have an MBA, which I Didn't really understand at the time why it was necessary, but looking back now, I couldn't be more grateful that they just wanted me to have well-rounded options in case this didn't work out. But during it, they really continued to push me to do internships with other planners and just really get my footing in what the industry has to offer. But the business degree helps me so much with being a small business owner. And I think the people that are fantasizing about being in this industry, that is hands down the biggest thing they forget is that it's a fantasy and that we need to be sustainable businesses as well, and you don't get to have the fun and creative side or help clients if you don't have the other side. So that's kind of what led me into teaching and really enjoying my mentoring. I've had my own set of amazing teachers along the way, and I just think that the more we share and the more we become a stronger, efficient industry that can be successful. So yeah, it's
Fantastic.
all exciting to me.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in quick now to ask, are you
Great.
currently accepting new mentees? Is that something ongoing
Oh,
or?
yeah, I didn't even pay Nina to say this, but, yes, I am, and thank you. So it's ongoing. I do 3-hour mentoring sessions. If you are local to New England, they can be in person. However, I do have a rate for virtual, which is very popular. And then I also just do 90-minute sessions virtually where you have one topic that you really wanna dive into, and then I always follow up after our sessions with my kind of like list of suggestions and resources. And so it's really fun. I only take 2 mentees a month. So there is yeah, I wouldn't say there's a wait list or anything. It just has to be the right time. And I'm pretty honest about that because I want everyone to get the most out of it if they work with me. So, but thank you for asking. Yes, I do accept rolling mentorships twice a month.
Great. So I'll
So
have that in the
yeah,
show notes of the podcast so you can check
thank
it out.
you.
Is that
Yeah.
especially, allowing the custom topics and sounds really fun.
Yeah. It's nice because I can be very transparent with people, like, "I can't help you here, but you need to look at this person," or
Mm.
if it is something I feel really strong I can help with, you know what I mean? Like, we know just like our clients, I know if they're a good fit or not. So, that's really fun too. But I did, recently I have the confetti hour, which you mentioned, but I did if you don't mind, I can
Yeah.
mention this really quick, but I just launched my official education website, which has been years in the making, and so there is a new home for it. It's just reneesabo.com. And so that's been really fun because I did put some digital resources on there. A lot of them are tailored to people younger, within that like 1 to 5 years, just really trying to get their footing with
Mhm.
like client onboarding and things like that. There are a lot of wedding planner specific resources on there too, but I'm going to continue to add and grow. So it's like a new home for all that stuff. So yeah, if anyone is interested in kind of any resources, you can check out that too.
Yeah, I'm gonna have it linked down below,
Thank you.
reneesabo.com, and she has a free resource, top 6 tools for wedding planners. So you can get
Yes.
started right away downloading that. And the website is gorgeous.
Thank
Looks
you.
really
I did it
fantastic.
myself,
You
which I,
did?
I wouldn't recommend
Wow.
anyone do. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. You did. You broke the rule.
I broke the rule. I did not do that for my wedding planning business, but I did feel for this education site. I felt I could handle it for now until it gets just like a business, until it gets to a certain revenue point. I really am not going to invest in like a huge branding overmap. So yeah, but that's thank you for the for the compliment
Mhm.
because I was like, oh, I did that.
Absolutely. So, at what point in your career doing wedding planning did you realize that your target audience was going to be luxury clients and
Mm.
what makes a luxury client?
That's such a good question too.
Mm.
So, I don't think I really understood the markets and the segments that existed until I actually I worked for 2 wedding planners and I was exposed, right? Exposed to the luxury market and kind of what that looks like. And even further so when I left their firms, I went to work for a hotel venue and it was in a totally different market, one kind of more in like your I would say like your premium market. I mean, I'm in Boston, so we're lucky to have, a very wonderful wide market here. You can be in the budget market, the average, premium, lovely, luxury. I would say there's multiple tiers in luxury, which we can talk about. And then there's ultra luxury. So there's a lot of opportunities. And I think like step one was that exposure to what that looks like. And then also me kind of finding my fitting with it. And so the way that I did that was definitely a journey, working for other planners, working, at those properties that were in more of the lovely market and just really finding that I was burnt out, to be honest, in the lovely market. I had way too many clients and I was just way too involved in their details and that concierge style of service to serve a lovely client. Like they, not to say they don't deserve that. Of course they deserve everyone deserves everything, right? But the way you set up your business has to be tailored for the appropriate clientele. So that was really when my little light bulb was like, I think I want to be in the luxury sector. And now, so even more the ultra luxury, just because my style, the way I serve my clients, is better suited for it. I'm very into the design. I'm, doing custom build outs and you have to charge appropriately for that, right? So, yeah. And then I have other planners who work for me seasonally and they hate that. They don't want it. They want to do more because they like the variety and they love managing people, but they don't want to get into measuring the corner of the steps at this venue. They're like, that is really ridiculous, Or, I'm sourcing like fabrics from Europe that I just can't get out of my head. My client didn't even ask me to do that. This is how I am. So I think you learn a lot about what markets exist and then also like who you are and like what there is no right market, I guess is what I really want. If anyone takes anything away from this, the luxury market isn't necessarily the best. You need to make sure that it's right for you. Personally, as a human, I definitely resonate with the fashion that my couples have. And so I think that like all of it just kind of falls into place and you can just feel like you're like yourself. And that's really beautiful too. So, because I understand my clients and I understand what they're looking for. And that is a huge part if you do want to grow into the luxury market. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I hope that
That
answered that.
And it's a great takeaway too that, you may find it's not for you. I had a good friend who
Yeah.
transitioned into luxury and then eventually she was like, Nina, none of them are doing zebra print. None of them are
Yeah,
doing
they can
what
be a little more
I like because
traditional.
that's who
Yeah.
she is.
Yeah. No, and honestly, every city, state, country, sector of a city is different, which is so exhausting. And so I'm here to say that unfortunately you have to do that work to figure out what those like opportunities exist because I actually feel that very deeply of what your friend feels. The New England market here can be very conservative. It can be pretty, like, traditional, I guess is the right word, beautiful, very grateful, but it can be harder to push the boundaries, and so I've actually branched into destination work because for me, it's not enough, and I
Mhm.
didn't I'm still growing. I feel like you're just always in an evolution, right, of your
Yes.
own services, so, yeah.
That's great. And also on the exposure you got from working with other people, I think that is great too. Even if
Yeah.
you've been established, I have another colleague who's been an event planner for over a decade, but took, a part-time job with a local luxury venue because she wanted
Mhm.
to tap in to that clientele and see if it was a fit.
Right. I love that. And I do think that working in a other side of the industry is just so powerful because you know how to work with those providers better, but you also get a peek into what clients are expecting in a different volume. I mean, I'll be honest that as a planner, I do much less clients than a venue does, obviously. So I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So now let's tie that together with the emotional marketing. So what do you mean when you say emotional marketing?
Yeah, no, thank you. I I didn't come up with this term, right? Like it's a term. While I did go to grad school and undergrad and touched on marketing and PR, I didn't necessarily take like a course on emotional marketing. And so when I came up with this talk, I just started to really think about what do I do that works really well to connect with my clients. And for me, emotional marketing looks like, things that tug at the heartstrings, that feels meaningful. It helps others relate and it speaks to our clients' emotions. And I think because we're dealing with such important milestone events, emotional marketing is actually very common in an industry like ours. And it's more important than, say, if you were trying to, market a gym, like a new gym, even though they could still use emotional marketing, right? But I think our industry in general it's just so set up for this type of marketing too. So that's kind of what I think emotional marketing is, and the easiest way I can describe it. What is going to resonate with your audience and who you're trying to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That was something even a venue gave me feedback on lately, saying they want to tug at the heartstrings more.
Yeah.
They want to tap into that emotion. So this is really, really perfect. What can wedding pros do on social media to show emotion in their marketing?
Yeah, no, and I think of the approach very simply too, and I honestly hope that people can walk away from this and almost just have a mindset shift, right? Like this is not hard to do. So what people can do is, personal storytelling. That's a huge one. Talk about the process and how you make it personal. I worked with a DJ who serves high end clients, and DJs are hard with the high end market because most people hire a band. And so to carve out that niche for himself was really cool to see. And, finally the opportunity came up and we had a great client together. And what he talks about on his social media is how they created like custom mashups of their first dance song that infused their cultures. Talk about that concierge level of service and also like listen to your clients. Like what is it that they are really looking for when they're hiring someone, and then take notes throughout that process and then talk about it through your personal storytelling. So that's what you can be posting on Instagram or social media. For a planner, I'm always looking at this like throughout the process, from initial conversations with my clients and just kind of wanting to infuse like hints of their style, their personalities and what makes this event special for them. And then I get to talk about that on my social media. So a story that I always share for one of my past clients is they always talked about how they would go on date nights at this spot in Boston and they loved the chips at the restaurant that they went to. And we found a way to incorporate that in their late night snacks. And so we had the salty grilled chips there, which was really fun. And that's something I talk about on my Instagram because for me, attracting a luxury clientele is about those small details. In fact, they're more about the small details than the big ones. And I think that's something that people forget. Talk about how you went above and beyond to get this vintage red wine that the father of the bride, you know, proposed to his bride, like talk about these things, listen, and just tie in all those sentimental nods to, what made their event really special and stand out. And I think that right there is a huge tool because you can be taking notes throughout the whole process, working with your clients. And obviously, we'll get into a little bit later. I have some tips on just how far you want to go with personal storytelling and things like that. But I'd say that's like my biggest tip is like really just infuse those personal ways that you're making their event special. And then, even relating, depending on where you want to fall in the luxury market, talk about things that are keywords that they would resonate with. So, certain champagnes are important. It would be very uncommon for one of my clients to not have a quality champagne on their bar. So I post photos about that. I talk about, their wine selections and just like how much fun it was for us to pick all that out together. And so that's kind of a world in and of itself, which is what I was talking about with exposure, is you kind of will start to learn that as you're working with people. But the other thing that I always recommend is really leaning on your expertise and your value. That's something that a luxury clientele, they want to know that they're handing off their event to someone who gets them and they're not, interested in the nitty-gritty and they really, they're hiring us to bring their vision to life, ideas and solutions. And so your marketing should reflect that, be that person who is going to bring their vision to life. And so showing your expertise, there's ways to do it without having an ego and doing these things. You can talk about, how you had challenges throughout the process. Ugh, in the pandemic, all my captions were so easy, to be honest, in the pandemic. Easy because everything else was hard, right? But I talked a lot about how we pivoted, we navigated, and everything was still just as magical. And I think that showing your value is a big way to attract a high-end client because they're only hiring the best and they want people that are showing their expertise. So another great way to do this is sharing, when you're posted, like on, when you're picked up for blogs or, any press that you get and real wedding submissions. Those are great ways to show that you're sought after. And you can do it in just like I was so honored that Lauren Zach's wedding was featured on the Boston Globe. Like you don't need to be a date, you can be like very modest and grateful about it. But I think you do have to show off a little bit in a tasteful way.
Yeah, yeah. There's one thing you mentioned, the example with the
Mhm.
champagne actually kind of blew my mind because
Really
it's such
good.
a subtle way to
Mhm.
establish your market. And
Yes.
but I love it. I love
When
it.
I'm so glad that that landed because, I'm a chatter, so I'll go into all these different examples, but when I'm auditing my mentees' sites or Instagram and they're wanting to up level to the luxury market, I can go through their entire Instagram and say, remove that, do more of that. Because you have to think about what your luxury clients are actually consuming, what they're actually enjoying, what they're doing. I would never post a specific shoe line if it wasn't in the ultra luxury space. It's just that's not you're not attracting them. And so you want to feel relatable and it's about being able to understand them, and so you want to show that in your marketing. So,
Yeah, and it's a great tool to establish and dictate your marketing without having to say, I am a
yeah.
luxury, you
Yeah, no, don't do that at all for sure. And I think it's just, people you do have to do a little bit of research and you do have to kind of understand the world. You don't necessarily need to be in that world, but you do need to understand it. And so that's something that I see a lot of people make a mistake with when th're trying to get into the luxury market is that they're blasting, I do luxury events, I do this. And it's like, but do you? Because the stuff that
Mhm.
you're posting, my clients would never have at their event. Like it could be a really poorly set up station that would never, the presentation matters. And so I think that is the biggest thing. So with the champagne, you know, have fun with it too as you're learning. Don't nothing's overnight, right? And I think it's really fun to learn those things about people.
If
Yeah.
somebody is trying to establish themselves in a luxury market, so maybe they don't have a portfolio yet, maybe they're planning some styled shoots, do you recommend in those instances investing in luxury stock photos? Or what would
Mm.
you advise that they do?
I would advise investing in props and styled shoots where you're going to feature that. So, fashion, partnering with the right vendors that are already in that and they're showcasing those things. The brands of the dresses matter and just things that I mean, for me, I know it can sound a little bit vain, but at the end of the day, like most luxury clients are very fashion forward. And so you want to kind of get excited about those details as we all are in weddings. I don't think anyone goes on site like, "Oh, I hate her dress." Like we're like, "Oh my goodness, it's beautiful." And so I think that is a great way to kind of push yourself a little bit when you're getting started and you don't have that portfolio, showcasing, partnering with people on shoots that are a great fit for that style. And then also, getting a lot of content that way. I I typically don't find a lot of luck with stock photos. However, it depends on the business that you have. I think for a high-end client, originality is very important. And so I would even steer clear from sharing images that are of other people's work. And I would lean your investments into, style, do some fabulous styled shoots, take people out to lunch that are going to be a good fit, like the director at the Four Seasons, or, it's hard to get these people. So obviously be mindful of that. But don't underestimate the power of like networking too.
Yeah, so I want to see that I've got this, of
Okay, cool.
what
Let's do it.
separates a luxury marketing for a luxury client as opposed to someone else. So first I'm going to say it's the brands you showcase.
Yeah. Love that.
It's the vendors you're working with,
Yes.
and it's the level of service of standard that's being shown in those photos.
Thank you. That is a beautiful recap of it. And I would say if I had 3 words that come to mind with it that really would make it stand out to people: professionalism, creativity, and poise. And I think those 3 things do set you apart from other markets just because there is this understanding that we are a service provider. When you go stay at a really nice hotel, you're blown away by the hospitality, right? And they're very professional, they're very poised, and they are providing that level of service. And so I think those 3 words, but they do it in very creative, special ways. And I think that's where that emotional piece ties into. So, they probably doing it for a lot of people, but they take the time to learn about the individual guest that's coming. So I think that's something that's really interesting.
Sometimes I use I hate to say it, but I use a bad experience to help me better understand the importance of
Totally.
what I'm doing. And one time I stayed at a luxury hotel and the guy was so rude. And when you're at a luxury hotel, it hits different and
Mhm.
it blows you away because you're not expecting it. And it kind of helps you to understand the expectation of when you are in a luxury field of what, your clients will expect of you and accept of you,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I was at a luxury space, I wasn't gonna let that fly, and I had to write my letter.
Yeah. It's so frustrating, right? And like that, you have to think about that on the flip side, like of your service, and that's what you're providing. If you're feeling frustrated, like it's those little things that they're going to remember that too. And our reputation is everything in this industry. So you really don't want people being frustrated.
Do you feel there's a specific social media site that works best for emotional marketing or even for luxury clients?
I definitely think that Instagram and email marketing is really powerful, mainly Instagram right now. I do know a lot of people are kind of starting to like check out TikTok. For me, TikTok's a little bit more like funny. Like it's not emotional. It can be if you can really hone in on that. But for me, I can be a little bit more like what's the word? Cheeky, or like I can be a little funny on TikTok and it's really fun. I can show transformations before and after. I think that's really fun. But you can do that on Instagram too. I just think Instagram is a really perfect place for emotional marketing. And it's because it's so set up for storytelling, right? Like we are connecting. It's for connection. And that really lends itself to being able to tell your story. And one last like part of this topic that I always bring up is kind of that power of human connection. And I think a lot of people think that when you hit this luxury level that it needs to be some sought after brand, like you don't talk to the owner, or you don't do, whatever. I actually hate that approach, and I think that the power of human connection is way more powerful when it comes to emotional marketing. And so like I have examples when I teach this on stage about, people talk about like post photos of hugging your clients, the reveal in the room, talk about what your favorite part of the wedding day is. Talk about kind of like the specifics on that day and kind of what made it really special, and just really don't underestimate the power of human connection. And because again, it's like those touches that people, if you are that far into their story and know them that well, I have no doubt your hospitality is up to that standard too.
Fantastic.
Instagram's great for it though.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
As you've been talking as a social media manager, I've just been thinking of ideas and what are some
Uh
more examples that we can share for people to help them visualize this?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I do think that it's good to kind of take notes throughout the planning process, or whatever that looks like, for your business. It could be the sales. I know I touched on that earlier, but it really is powerful. I like to take notes from when they first book me, put it into whatever, CRM you're using. And then when I go to shell out my marketing, wherever it is, if it's Instagram, I use Planoly. If it's my email marketing, I use Flowdesk. And I like to kind of map out connecting those to photos later on. And so it does take a little bit of work, but I do it like once a month. And you can start to really like form those stories. And I would say you don't need to do this for every post, right? Like mix it in with your normal jam. But I do think you'll find a huge difference in connecting with your ideal audience if you start to mix in these, personal touches, and really just like kind of tugging on people's heartstrings, and helping them understand what you offer. So that's kind of how I do it. I like to map it out and talk about it. I also reuse stories. I think that your audience changes year after year, and your clients are one time typically. So don't be afraid to reuse it. Um, and I'm trying to think of some other ideas just so that you can walk away with some more tangible tips. But, recaps from wedding weekends, those are
Mhm.
always really powerful. And you're coming off of it with a high.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, yeah, that is a perfect time to put in some emotional marketing. Talk about the process working with your clients, why you loved them, some highlights from the day, and just kind of craft it into this like really beautiful paragraph. You don't need to write 8 million things, but just kind of talk about them.
Yeah.
and what made that whole experience special for you. I talk a lot about my team as well in my journey as an entrepreneur and who I am. And for me, that's that human connection aspect. And most of my clients are like my biggest cheerleaders, and they know I'm a hardworking woman, and I really appreciate that I can be a small business and serve these clients, and they are my biggest cheerleaders. So, but they wouldn't know that unless I was more open and vulnerable and kind of talking about, myself and the highs and lows. Now, do it tastefully, of course, but you can talk about things are in the pandemic, it was very big, talking about how we were kind of working to overcome obstacles and how grateful I was to work with some of our vendor partners. And again, you're just showing your value and your expertise, but you're also a real human. And I think people see that that's genuine, So be genuine. That's
Yeah,
a
because
big thing.
sometimes the emotional marketing can be you, right? And
Yeah.
maybe it's celebrating an award you got because you're thanking your
Yeah.
clients. It's not showing off, it's showing gratitude.
No.
Ooh.
Exactly. Gratitude is my favorite word. Like, cause I do wake up and I always feel so much gratitude that I get to work with these people on such a big milestone. There's a lot of options these days. And so, yeah, be grateful and show that.
Yeah. Something
Yeah.
I was thinking of, if you don't know what the emotions are of your past couples, if we're talking and you're still maybe you're just not as verbal with putting things out, go to your reviews, see what's in common and see
Yes.
the couples who have written their emotion. They made me feel stress free. It was such relief. Walking in the room was this, grab some of those feelings. They've done the work for you with those reviews.
Yeah. I
Turn to
love that
those and
tip.
then match it with photos. Or what's great about Instagram, which you mentioned being a great source for this, is it has so many options. So you could do the same
Yes.
concept as a carousel, as a reel, as a story, and it gives
Totally.
you a lot of freedom.
Yes. I think and if you really do feel like, man, I'm stuck, the biggest thing that helped me up level in my business was working with a copywriter. And so if you really feel this is an area you're stuck, it is so important. I mean, I think like a lot of sales generate from marketing like this. And so I would say lean into sort outsourcing some help if you do need that help, like crafting a beautiful story based on you. Usually you'll brain dump to them, right? You'll say like, these are the 3 things I'm trying to convey, and they're gonna, like, form it. There's also, like, AI help these days, like
Yes,
ChatGPT. I mean, my goodness, there's so much help out there these days to really help you with your marketing, and I think as long as you're coming from your heart and you're taking these things into account, you'll be able to craft something that feels genuine and grateful and all that stuff, so
great.
love it.
Renee, anything more before we get into our rapid fire bonus questions?
Well, the only last thing I'll leave you
Yeah.
guys with is some things to avoid because
Yes.
I did mention it earlier, and they're really quick. They're very quick. So I would say just avoid oversharing personal details because I will say luxury clientele are very private, and so don't mention people's streets that they're hosting their events on, or even be cognizant of showing guest faces if that's something with your client that isn't what they want. It's kind of this open conversation and understanding what is appropriate to share. For the most part, you're good. But I think, I try not to dabble in too much of their personal details or their personal family names and things like that. And then, that confidentiality piece, which goes along with it, is, that's something you have to develop with your client when you're working with a luxury client. And those are conversations you have to get comfortable with. So, I had this like incredible wedding, in a different country, and I can't share really the specs around it. I never signed an NDA, which can be common in luxury events, or ultra luxury events. But I did have this confidentiality piece that we agreed to in my contract that said I can share all the decor, I can talk about all that, but I can't really talk about who my clients are, who the guests were, and they don't really want a ton of their photos of guests or their faces. And so figure out what that looks like. But if you are entering this world, that's just some things to keep in mind when it comes to emotional marketing, because sometimes you just don't want to be an oversharer, right? And you don't want to cross any boundaries. You want to be respectful. So yeah, those are my last little tidbits
I
for it.
love that. And
Yeah.
also, if you have a social media manager or a team, make sure you communicate that
Yes.
clear
Yes.
and that you don't send them anything that isn't to be posted. 'cause I've been
Exactly.
in that situation.
It's so awkward. Yeah, I mean, a big one is stationery. Like, you guys have it hard, but, like, create a fake envelope. Do not put addresses on the internet. Like, we can't do that anymore. So,
Mm.
that's something, or style it in a way that you're not sharing their address. So, those are just little things that, you have to catch because they're gonna come back to bite you.
Yeah,
So,
just have, kind of like a dummy address you always use.
yes.
But
Yeah.
that's something, like I said, to communicate, make sure the photographer has it because they're going to take this
Yeah.
beautiful flat lay that you can't
Mhm.
use. So,
Yeah,
great tip.
exactly.
Really
Yeah,
great.
thank you. Hope this was a helpful topic. It's one of my favorites, and I think it really does help. Actually, no matter market you're in, but I do think that it can help you make a difference if you're looking to grow into the luxury market. It just sets you apart. So,
Yeah, we covered a lot, and I think it's going to be
yeah,
really valuable to a lot of
good.
people. So after we do these bonus rounds, I'll have you tell everybody where they can find you and have you be their
Awesome.
new BFF.
Sounds like a plan. I love it.
So, cocktail hour or Viennese hour?
I'm a cocktail hour girl. Yeah, I just love it.
Hmm. When I'm in the zone, I'm listening to.
Taylor Swift. I'm a
Ooh,
Swiftie, so no
yeah.
shame. I love her to death. So,
What was the last book you read?
so I'm not like a huge reader, but I do like to read business type books. And so I was just reading like Profit First, which is like a
Mhm.
dorky, it's not dorky, it's a business book. So,
Yeah.
but I actually have reread it many times because I'm really trying to grasp some of
Oh,
the
I haven't
concepts in
read
it.
it, so maybe I'll add it
Yeah,
to my
it's a good
list.
book. It's a good book. Yeah.
The best weddings have.
Ah, I think a good guest flow. I should say a good flow that takes into account everyone, not just the couple.
Mm,
It is about every single person's experience, and we have to, like, keep that in mind, don't let things wait too long just because the couple needs more time. There's ways to infuse everyone's needs, and I think the best weddings have that down, a flow that
yeah,
works.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And if you weren't in weddings, you would be.
That's a hard one because I have a lot of hobbies. I could see myself in the world of travel. I also love to cook, and some things that people may not know about me is that I grew up singing and playing violin. So I think I could go into any sector, but
Yeah.
all the things that all flow with it is creativity. So
Mm,
it's something creative.
great. So, where can our audience find you?
Oh, yes. So you can find me, I'll start with Instagram, my favorite
Hmm.
platform. You can find me on Instagram at the confetti hour or at urban_soiree. That's my wedding business. And you can find me online, reneesabo.com, or you can do theconfettihour.com. So the confetti hour is my podcast and I interview fellow wedding professionals. So check that out too. Or you can check out my work at urbansoiree.com.
Great. Yeah, there's so much you can do to connect with Renee from
Yeah,
the podcast, mentoring, speaking engagements, and you even have a shop on the website with
I
some
do.
great resources. So there's a lot
Thank
to
you.
turn to, and it's all going to be linked in the show notes. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, Nina. This was awesome. I appreciate you having me on. I love your podcast. So,
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I had a blast getting to chat with Renee, and hopefully, it won't be the last time that we cross one another's paths. But to ensure that Renee crosses your path again, check out the show notes where I will have a link to all of Renee's social media profiles, her website, and as well as how you can look into working with her and her mentorship program. I will be back next Wednesday with another episode of the I Do Wedding Marketing podcast. And I thank you so much for listening and being here.